In this video, we're going to focus on how we can play around and create two tooltips. And as you can see here, the tooltip follows along nicely, and it will grab here the date and also the matching value. Same with the one here below. And you can see the tooltip even grabs the color of the data set nicely. So let's start to look how we can create the two custom tooltips in Chart.js 4. First of all, we need to make sure we have the boiler template. This one here, and you can find this on chartjs3.com getting started. This specific link here, which you can find as well in the description box. Once you're on here, just copy this chunk of code. Next, if you want to have the source code of this video or many of my other videos, check out my Patreon page. Alright, to do this, first thing what we want to do is we want to convert the chart into a line chart. So I'm going to say here line chart, save that, there we are. Next, what I want to do is I want to have another data set. So I'm going to copy this and add up another data set here, comma, paste, and we're going to say here this is the sales or A sales, and this will be the B sales or something like that. And then what I want to do here is this one will get the specific color of the red here and there. And then we have here this one, the A sales will be the black line. So I'm going to put that in there. And to make sure we have some differences, I'm going to say here 9, 9, 9, and 9. Let's save that, refresh, there we are. So now we have this, that looks quite nice. But of course we're not done yet. So once we did this, the next thing what we want to do here is we want to convert this. Because basically what we want to deal here is with a time adapter or a chart with a time scale. How to do this? We need to get the time adapter. To get the time adapter, we need to go to the official chartjs.org website, and then we're going to select here on the ecosystem. We have access to every adapter. I'm going to scroll down here and look for the adapters, and the ones that we want is one of these here. Apparently there are multiples, and I'm going to use just the date FNS. So I'm going to grab this. And the reason why this one, you only have one single JavaScript file. I'm going to copy this one, and then when I did that, I'm going to move it up here and make sure that it will load after the Chart.js library here. So this library needs to load first because this one here is a dependency of whatever is above. Once we did that, save, nothing changes yet. Alright, let's start to pinpoint our X scale, because now we're going to say here we have a new scale here, and we can say here this will be the I guess here the what is that, the scale type. This will be time. And then if I save this right now, there we are. You see it works, but of course it just shows the numbers here. We need to indicate here in the time object, because we're allowed to do that now because we have the type defined. Then I'm going to say here unit will be equal to day. Save, there we are. Of course we don't have anything here, and I guess maybe this should be even month. That was the specific question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to create now some dates. So I'm going to say here 2023, and then say 0101. We're going to put in, let's say, 7 different dates in here. 2nd January, 3rd January, 4th January, 5th January, and then maybe 6 and 7. Let's do only 1 month for now, and later on we can play around with that. As you can see here we have this, but we could also change this to maybe the February, and then you can see here it changes as well. Alright, for now I'll just leave it like this. That's fine, because what I want to do, that's the more important one, is when you hover over the tooltip, I want to show here both tooltips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here, and in the options I need to play around with the interaction. So I say interaction, and within the interaction we're going to say the mode, and the mode will be the index. So every time I hover within the index area, it will show both of these. So if I save this, make sure you have a comma here, refresh. Now if I do this, you can see here this is only on intersect. That means that if I hit within the border radius of the point, in that case it will show both. I don't want this. I want to show always by default both, or at least we have the interaction, because for me what's more important is this interaction where you can see here the circles are getting bigger. So what I'm going to say here, intersect, and we set this on false. So it doesn't require to be within that point. So if I save that, refresh, you can see here now as I move anywhere where I want, it will automatically grab that specific item. So that's working nice and clear. But what is more important, if you look at the points that is changing, you can see here that is the event or the movement that I want. I will remove the tooltip because this tooltip is not helpful for us, because we need to make our own tooltip. So what I'm going to say here, we have the interactions, we have the scales, so say comma, I'm going to say here plugins, then we're going to say here tooltip, and then we're going to say here this is enabled equals false. Save, refresh. As you can see here, while we move our mouse or cursor, you will see that it works nicely, but it will not show the tooltip anymore. It does understand the movement. Of course, I don't like this so much because I want to make the movement more visible. So I'm going to say here the following. I'm going to say here point, hover, background, color, and we're going to say this will be white. If I save this, refresh, we should see here now a white background color, and it only works on the specific data point right now, data set, which is the black one. Later on we're going to apply that same on the red one. Next, what I want to do here is to say the point hover radius, and I'm going to make this just very extreme, let's say 10. Save that, refresh, and as you can see here now it starts to change as well. So this 10 is all very nice, but it should have here the point hover border width to make sure that it is in proper balance. And let's say this will be 3 pixels. Save that, refresh, there we are. So this works. Now what I want to do is I want to copy and just duplicate this on our other item or other data set. Save this, refresh. Now we have this one. Alright, so this works nicely, but you can see here we might be almost clipped off to a certain extent. So what we have to do here is we have to play around with that item, and I just need to check what is the specific term for that. So there's a specific term where we can check if something is being clipped off. Apparently it's already by default set, so I'm going to put this in here just for you to show. I'm going to say clip equals false, save, refresh. Now you can see here nothing happens. If I set this on true, pay attention with this here. If I refresh, now it will clip this off. Alright, so these are like some of these options here, but you can see this is just not the proper solution because this one is fine, but here we are losing a pixel, and same here. So what I'm going to do here is use some tricks. And one of the easiest tricks for me to use is the following here. In the options, I'm going to say a layout and give it some additional padding. And make sure that this is called layout. And then I'm going to say a padding. And the padding could be left and right. So let's say left 20 and then right 20 as well. Comma here, save this and refresh. So as you can see here now, this starts to look much better, except for this one here. Well, we could do here even more. We're saying padding top and bottom left. Or, I think that's even better for this one here, because later on we have the tooltip. We should have here some space, and I can just put that in the Y scale. In the Y scale, say enter. I'm going to say a grace. And grace allows us to add additional space between the very top data point and the scale. So there will be an additional space between there. So if I put number 1, save, refresh, and as you can see here, we have now the space that we desire. Alright, this looks all beautiful, and now it's time to continue on and work on creating the custom item. And this is a tricky one. So we have here the options. We're going to scroll down here, put a comma here, and say here plugins. And don't get confused by this one here. These are different. This is an array, and this because we can have an array of multiple plugins. And then what I will say here, custom tool tip. Copy this and put it here up. I'll say here // custom tooltip plugin block, And I'm going to say a constant custom tooltip equals, and then I'm going to say the ID will be custom tooltip, comma, and we all have to say here 2 parts. Basically, there's 2 parts. I want to measure the item itself, the events, and we have to trigger the event, and after the event we need to draw the tooltip. So there are 2 parts here. Let's say here the after event, and what do we have more is after the event I want to draw something. So then I'm going to say here, we can say here after data sets draw, and the reason why after data sets draw is because I want to draw on top of these lines and not before them. That's very important. And I'm going to say a chart, and let me just comment this out because we'll be using that later on. Chart, arcs, and plugins. Then we have this one here. I guess what we can do now is we can start to work with creating the event where we need, well, let's see what we need. Well, what we need is the following. When we hover over a specific item, I need to know what is the index number of this, and I need to know as well which line would be up and which line would be down, because it would depend on our tooltip. If it's down, then the tooltip needs to point down, and if it's up, tooltip needs to point up. And of course you can see here as we switch here every time, this needs to recalculate itself. So let's put this after event for now, and let's start to work with this. I'm going to say the chart and the arcs. This here, let me just comment out and work on that later on. Then what I'm going to do here is an object destructuring. I'm going to say constant, and then I'm going to say here, the CTX. So I just make sure that this is the chart object. And if you don't understand what object destructuring is, I have a video in the description box. This is the CTX, this is the data. We probably need the scales, and more specifically, I need to know the X and Y scale. Then what I want to do is I want to figure out the X and Y coordinates. So I'm going to say constant X core, which is the X coordinate of the cursor, and that one is basically the arcs. And let me just show you what this does, so you have an understanding of why I'm doing this, why I'm using this. So I'm going to say here arcs, open up the developer tab, and then as you can see here we get the event. It registers the event. It shows a lot of things, but what I need to know is the mouse move, because we're not hovering on top of the canvas. No, we're moving within the canvas. Click on event here, and now you can say here the X and Y coordinates exactly on our canvas. That is what I need. So I'm going to say here the X coordinate will be the arcs dot event dot X. Then you can guess for the Y exactly the same, but then here Y and here Y. So now we have these here. I'm going to say a ctx.save to save everything we have, and let's start to work. Alright, what do we need to do here? Well, basically, I need to check a few things. I need to know, first of all, is my cursor within the chart area, like this one here? This is being recorded as well. In chart area, true. And the chart area is basically from this line to here, and back. So it's within this box here of the canvas. Not here, because this is outside the chart area. This here is in. Alright, number one, we need to know, are we in? Once we are in, we need to know, when we're hovering on item, which data point are we? Or more specifically, not the data, well, this is the data point, the index of data set 1 and 0, index 0 of the data set, and index 1 of the data set, which data point of that we need to know. So let's start to work and do this. So we're going to say here, how do we do this? Well, we can say here the following. I guess what we're going to grab is chart. This is the built-in functionality of Chart.js, and later on I'm going to show you, well, let me just show you this as well, because this is also very important. I didn't say that this will be easy, so bear with me. Chart.get dataset meta index 0, And then we're going to say here dot data. And if I save this, we should be able to see something in here. We're getting here some information. Let's see here, parse. Which one are we hovering? I guess we're hovering on this top here. Do we see here anything? Parse. Not really. I was hoping to see here something. Well, it doesn't matter. I guess what we can do here first is to look, are we, oh wait, hold on. I need to check if it's active. That's the one we're probably looking for. And I realize the reason why I don't see that, of course, it could be here down. Let me just go more specific. I'm going to say your data set index number 6 dot active. Save, refresh. Are we active? Yes, there we are. This is what I need to know. That's number 1. I need to know, are we active on a specific data point, or which data point are we hovering? Because if I move here, you can see it's false. So this does show something. So we have to use this information, but of course we need to do a for loop for this, to loop through each of these. So what we're going to do here now is, we're going to just grab all of this, including the data here, but exclude this part here. Then we're going to say that for each, and then with the for each, what I'm going to do here is, for every data point that we have, we also need the index, function error expression, and then within here, what I need to do is I need to know if the data point is active. So if I say here console log data point dot active, we should see something now, or at least it does something. It will say true or false. It does something, as you can see here. It will look through every one of the data points, says that it's false, and only grab the one that is true. The question is now, which data point did we hover on that is true? So that's very important for us. So what I want to do now is basically 2 things. I need to know basically the index of this, because we could grab here the index. Active. Alright, so what we're going to do is, I guess we can say here, if the data point is active, equals strict true, and what is also important, it must be active, but we want to make sure it's only active when we are on the mouse, when our cursor is within the chart area. The moment we move away, we don't want to measure that activity anymore. So then what we're going to do here is we're going to say and the args.in chart area. So we want to make sure that are we still in the chart area? If that is the case, we're going to do something. And what we're going to do here is create a value. And I guess we're going to use hoisting for this, because we want to put in here value that must transfer later on to this area here. To do that, I'm just going to put in here, this is what we call hoisting in JavaScript. I'm going to say here let, and we can give here the name here, a index data point. I'm not 100% certain with the name. I'm just getting it, or I'll just make this up, but I think there's probably a much better name for this. But we get the index data point. So what I want to do now is within this index data point, or we're going to use this, but I realized that this data in the point, oh well, let's make that first. We'll be needing 3 specific items. Number 1, I want to know what is the index value. Well, I guess we could say that the index here would be equal to this. It will just grab this. And if I do here then a console log data point, we should see here something. There we are. As you can see here, look, we get the value. And let me just refresh. If I move here 6, I should go moving here 3, 2, 1, 0. There we are. And if we move along here, it tracks now this movement. Number 1. So that is done. Number 2, what do I need to know? I need to know if I'm, for example, hovering on this one, is this one the highest value or that one? In this case, we can visually see it, but the computer doesn't understand this. So we need to talk to the computer or the browser and tell the code what we want. So what I want to say here, let's say here, highest value, and the highest value here should be something, and then a comma, we have the lowest value. And the lowest value, basically we're going to put in here is the data set index. Is it the red line, which is index 0, or the black line, index 1? So I have no proper name for this, I guess. Maybe we can data set or something. What I will do here is just say this will be up and this will be down. Of course, this is not really true. This is really, well, the up needs to be always highest value, should be always up, but I guess that will be suitable. But the up value here will be a 1 or a 0 depending on the values. Alright, so we have this, but of course this has not been defined. We need to define this now. What I'm going to do here is, let me just hide this one, and we only have the up for now. And let's see, are we going to put it in the if statement? I think we should do that, because it needs to push in here, because it needs to be within the active. And once it's active, we need to know, first of all, constant up will be what? Well, I need to know up, the value. What is the value? How do we get the value, and knowing that the value here can be compared with this one and that one? Well, the nice thing here is, if you saw this data is the object of data here. So we can go to data sets and we can get the index number. We already know how to grab the index number of Hoover. So all what we can do now is put in a fix, because I'm going to assume there's only 2 lines for this case. That was the example that's being shown, so that was the question. 2 lines. So we're going to say here, is it the black line or the red line? So that's index 1 or 0. And then the data, which index. So how do we do this? I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to say here for the up. And then we're going to say here the up will be based on, you can grab here, this data. And this data here gives us dot data sets, index 0. And then we say here dot data index. Alright, so we have this here, and I guess we could just even do it like that and just get the value out of it. Console log up, save, and I'll just hide this one, refresh. As you can see here, as I hover over it, you can see here now we get 2 values. Number 1, number 9 of our, we get the index value and the matching number of that data point. So we're going to get this one, but now what I want to do is basically make a if else statement here, and that's basically quite simple. And this one here, we're going to say here the following: if this will be bigger or equal to what exactly? Data number 1. In that case, well, let's make this here parentheses. If this is the case, say index 0. So that means that index 0 will be up. If that is not the case, index 1 will be up. There we are. So now we should be able to see here index 0 should be up. That is the highest value. If I do here, it's identical, but still we just give then the highest value index 0. But let's go here, or this one here. You can see here now the highest value is the black line, which is index 1. So this works nicely, and if I move this, you will see it's being recorded nicely. Alright, that works. So once we know this, we can do now the exact same for down. Let's say down will be what exactly the lowest value, and what that is equals up. If up is bigger than 0, basically the index number, in that case it should be 0, or else it should be 1. Am I correct? Let's see if this is correct. Let's save that. We should just have the opposite basically. Alright, so we have 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. It should always be 0, 1. We are not allowed to have twice 0 or twice number 1. And as you can see here, all of these numbers are always one or the other. This is a confirmation that the logic works. So now we have this. I can remove all of this, and we're done now with the logic of our cursor. So this is the event logic. Now what I need to do here is basically undo. And what I mean by undo is, if we're moving away from our cursor, in that case, what I want to do, or if we move out of the chart area, remove that one and then start to undo whatever this is. This must be out of the memory of the system. So what I'm going to do here, that's the if statement. So I'm going to say another one, if not args. So if we're out of the in chart area, so this is equal to false. In that case, what I want to do is I want to say this index point should be undefined. The reason why is I don't want this to have a memory, or else later on our design will give an error. So if I save this now, refresh, nothing really happens yet. Let's start to draw now our item, which we have to do in here. Make sure you have a comma here, or else you might get an error. So I'll just put a space here as well, so it's nice and organized. So what we need here is the next part, and we're going to say here another constant. Then we're going to say equals chart. So we have the object destructuring again, ctx data and scales x and y. So now we have this here. If I save this, refresh, alright, this all works. But then what I want to do here is I'm going to use, let me show you, I'm going to do console log, and I'm going to say here the index data. So we assume that this value should be working and showing. If I refresh, you can see here what is happening, but you see at the very top we get an undefined. The reason why we get an undefined is just because at the very first second you have the animation, as you can see here. This animation here takes about 0.5 millisecond, and that creates an error, or it could create an error. So what I want to do is, if undefined, I want to return nothing, just to return blank, to make sure that the undefined process is gone after. Once it's gone, it will just work normal. So we're going to say here, let's see, if dataset point equals strict undefined, in that case the return will be nothing, and that's it. Save, refresh. There we are. Alright, so now we have this. So the next thing what I want to do now is start working on drawing the item. So we've done now a lot of explaining, and now it's time to draw. So the drawing here, what we need to do here for the drawing, we need to build a few items. First of all, I want to get the tooltip. Basically, we're going to draw our own tooltip. We're not going to use the tooltip from Chart.js. We're going to create our own version that would immediately respond and move along with our item. So for this, I need to know again the x and y coordinates. We have this one here, but now what I will do here is I'll just say here constant. And what I'm going to do is I want to grab whatever this index is here, this value here, and convert this and make sure it's readable on where we are in pixel coordinates. So what I'm going to say here, constant x position will be equal x, this from the x scale that comes from this here. So we have the object destructuring, and then we say here get pixel for the value. And remember, our value is the index number, but I don't want the index number. I want now the pixel coordinates of that specific index number. So I'm going to say here, how do we get that? Well, remember how we get that from data point to index value, and I guess that should have a proper name, but I have nothing right now. I didn't spend time on the name, so my apologies, but you can probably fine-tune this. So don't get confused. It's index data point, and then we say here index value. All right. So then we have this. Let's see if this works. I realize that this might give an error because this is not a time. Well, let's see. I'm going to test this. Console log, and I guess we need to convert it into a time and a date as well. As you can see here, we get this weird number, and my apologies for that. And the reason why is it cannot convert this yet. And the reason for this is it is a time. If we just grab that, it is whatever the index is, number 6, but now it probably thinks like 6 as a second or something like that. It just doesn't understand the logic of it. So what I'm going to do here is convert this into a time. So what I'm going to say here, or maybe not even, we need to get the data label. Sorry, my bad. We're not even going to get this. Hold on. Alright, so it's slightly tricky. It's a double trickiness. Let's keep it like that. Alright, so we have this here. So this is the issue here. We have this, but this is an index number that needs to be converted into a time. But we want to search for which index number or which date is matching with that. And that date we can start to calculate. So bear with me. This one is just a real tricky one. Real mind twister. So what we're going to do here is the following. We get the index. Maybe what I can do here, let's do I will just comment this out for now. We get the index number. Then what I'm going to say here is we're going to get this index number based on the labels here. So what I'm going to do, data.labels, and I'm going to put in this. If I save this, you should see here now, this is 7, that is correct. This one was 1 January. This one is 1 January, 2 January, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we get all of these numbers. This is a string value. I need to convert this into a date object. And this date object will be very important for us. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is, how do we convert it into a date object? So what I'm going to say here is now new date, put this all in parentheses, and then what I want to do, because the date, if I save this, you will see here we get a specific GMT or Greenwich Mean Time of +8. This is all fine, but look at the time here. If we start here, this should be just 12 midnight or just 12 o'clock starting of the day, and not at 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. because of the GMT time. So what I want to do is I want to convert this, because this is very important. If you don't do this, it will not put it exactly on the right location. I'm going to say dot set hours. I'm going to say here 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, and 0 milliseconds. So if I save this, we should get here the seconds, milliseconds, but exactly of that day, always same. Alright, so now we have this here. This value is on the X scale as well recognized. So remember this here, we can start to cut this out and basically put it in here. Alright, I know this is a complicated one, so save this. Now we should have here the position here, and you can see what is this position. Well, this is the coordinates of where we're going to draw then our item. So let's start to draw something so you have a visual. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say a ctx.begin path. Then what I want to do here in the begin path, I'm going to say a ctx.fill style, because I want to have the background color, and the background color will be, for now, I'll just make it black. Later on, I'm going to grab the background color of this or the border color, one of these that I want to use. Next, what I want to do here is I want to create a rounded rectangle. Luckily, this is quite easy to do, because I'm going to say here ctx.roundRectangle, and this round rectangle will have an X position, a Y, or the Y position. With the X position we already have, we can just put this one in here for now. We already built that in there. Then we have here the width, the height, and the border radius. Or is that, yes, that's the border radius. So what I want to do here is I'm just going to say here, quite simple. Let's say here 10 pixels for every corner, so there's 20 pixels in total. The height should be 20 pixels. The width, let's say 100 pixels fixed. And for the y, I'm just going to say here 50. Later on, we need to recalculate it. Alright, so of course you don't see anything, and the reason you don't see anything, I need to indicate still. I'm going to ctx.fill to give it a command to draw. There we are. As you can see here, it is working, but you say, well, it's not really in the center. Well, it is in the center, but it starts from this center point, and then it moves to the right. So we're getting somewhere. Alright, what I want to do now is we have the x coordinates. What we have to do next is get the y coordinate. So how do we get the y coordinate? And by the way, how do we get this one in the center? Well, let's do that one. That's the easiest one. All we have to do here, I would assume that will be this minus 50. The reason why is we have a width of 100. So whatever the width is, divide by 2, and then push it more to the left. So if I do this, there we are. Alright, so now we're getting this here nicely. So how do we get here this y value? So this y value needs to be calculated, and I'm going to work on this right now. So I'm going to say here, the y value, let's see, how do we get the y value? Well, let's put it in here, constant y position equals, and the y position here, I realize that we have two positions. And the position is one for the y value, because the y value works on vertical level, meaning from top to bottom. We have one here, we have one there, so there's two. So I'm going to say here y position index 0, and this y position index 0, what I want to do here is I'm going to use a built-in command that we can use, which is chart.get data set meta index 0, for example. And then let me just show you what this does. That just makes it a bit more easier. We can see here we get a lot of information here, and what I really want to get here is in the data, and then whatever the data point is, we should get here the y coordinates. There we are. That's the one we need. And then what is very nice, if you refresh, this effect will also work. So what I'm going to do here, this one here can be basically done based on our highest value. I don't even know which one it is. We're just going to put in the index data point value, and just say this will be the highest value. And then later on we're going to make it recalculate. So maybe y position 0 is not the right term, but maybe it's y position highest or something like that. But anyway, it doesn't matter, it will work eventually. So then we say here .data, and the data will have the data index number, and that will be of course this item here. You can grab this, and we put that in there, and then we say here .y. Now we have this, let's put this in here, in the y value, and save that, refresh. Alright, as you can see here, this works nicely and it starts to move along. That is the first one that we need to do here, but there's still more. So what I'm going to do next is, well, this is the cloud, so what I'm going to say here, let's put it up here, slash the cloud. Alright, next what we need is, because remember, the tooltip has a caret. The caret is that triangle pointing to the specific point. So we call this a caret, and the caret, well, it will have a few items. Let's see here. I guess what we can do here is we have the filler, then we could do it within here, I guess, because we're not really done. That should be a part of one specific item. So in the caret, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start to draw the line, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw from one point going up to the left, and then after that to the right, and then make sure that it will look like a triangle. So just follow along. It sounds so complicated. So I'm going to say ctx.move to, this is the starting point, and then we're going to say here this will be the x value and the y value as the starting point. So what I can do here, I'm going to put in the x and y in here. Then what I want to do is I want to create a connecting line. So I'm going to say line 2, and then here X and Y. And what I want to do is basically if the line goes up and then to the right, the left side, what I need to do is how many pixels are we going up and how many pixels are we going to the left. What I'm going to say is I want to go only 5 pixels to the left, so I say -5. For this one, I want to go 5 pixels up, so I'm going to say -5 as well. So 5 pixels up and 5 pixels to the left. So then what I need to do is I want to stay here. I don't want to move this, but I want to go to the right side. So instead of 5 pixels to the right, if I go 0, I'm just in the center again. So I want to say here +5 pixels. So once we do this, if I save this, refresh, you can see here now it starts to create a triangle except that the caret is in the wrong position. So we need to start to control the position on this one. Let's see, we can probably play around with that a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is we can do it like that. I guess we should make a function out of this because we have 2 items and then we can just quickly play with that. And this is the reason that I'm expecting only 2 lines and not more than that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say a function, and this function is called our tooltip or custom tooltip, whatever you want to name this. Then I'm going to cut out this entire item. You still have to put the text in, so don't worry. The text is next. Then I want to make sure we have some coordinates here. I would say here maybe the Y. For the X, I'll just leave the X position here, but the Y should be this one, or later on we have a position, Y position 1. We probably have the data set index. We will have the tooltip, I guess, position. I will have to play around with that one. And we have the cloud position. And what I mean by the cloud position, it is, are we going to put the cloud up or down depending on our position. Anyway, we're going to work on that. Alright, so now we have all of these, and let's start to draw at least the first tooltip items. I'm going to grab all of this. I'll put it in here, but we have to make sure we fill up here this correctly. So I'm going to say this will be at least 0. This value here is the dataset index. It's basically the data point, and more specifically, this one should be if we are the highest or the lowest. So I'm going to grab this item here. We're going to put that in here, the highest value, and then what we need more is this, and then what are we going to do here with that tooltip position will be up or down, and that's a tricky one. I have here in my notes a -1, so I'm going to have to check on that. I'm going to follow along with that, and then here the cloud position will control this item here. Where are we going to put the item? Are we going to put it up or down? For this, right now I have here a -38, so I'm going to work on this because my notes have these, and this is a real tricky item. So what I need to do here is exactly the same, except here number 1, and this one I'll just say 1, and this will be +18, and later on I'm going to work on this, so don't worry about that. I'm going to copy this, put that in here, position 1, and this is the Y position 1, but this is not the highest value, it's the lowest value. I save this and refresh. Alright, right now you don't see anything because it's just on the same position. Both of them are exactly identical position. That's why I had these values here. So what I want to do here is the tooltip position. We're going to start working on the tooltip, and then let's see here. Well, let's do the border color first. Maybe that's the best one. What we can do here, I'll say data.dataSets index, the data set index. That's this one here, and then we're going to say the border color. Let's save that, refresh, and now you can see here it becomes black or reddish pink depending on the situation. Of course, we're still missing some values. Let's see here. So the next one is the round rectangle. I think that's all fine, although not completely, I guess, because we have here a hard-coded value. I'm going to make this y, and I'm going to say here y and y because that is dynamic, because this value is this here. Save that. Alright, but as you can see here, we get some weird shapes, so I need to work on that one. We have to check what's going on here. The reason why this all works so weird is I need to close the path. So I'm going to say here, just be above the fill, ctx.close path. Doing that, it will redraw the shape, or it should redraw the shape, but apparently it doesn't yet, so we have to see on that one. Let's see here, we have this carrot and cloud, and then maybe here we have this close path, and then let's see if we need to close the path above as well. I guess we need to do both of them. Alright, interesting, so I'll have to check on this one later on. I'll just leave this for what it is, or we can just leave that there, that both of them are apparently needed. Am I correct? The carrot, the fill, the line, position, I think it is. So I have my notes here, but I'm getting slightly confused as well. Alright, what we're going to do now. Alright, after studying my notes, I realized that this is not what I thought. Apparently I have some codes incorrectly organized. Anyway, this is that. Let me save that. Let's double check here. Well, that will be a good exercise. I guess here what is happening is it's grabbing this position here above. So probably I have here this y position or this one here. That's the reason why we are getting the issue. So if I do this, I'm going to say here y. There we are. Alright, this works better. Now what I need to do is I need to make sure that the colors are independent. So we have here the close path fill. So we have here the data set, and the data set should be highest, but this one should be lowest. That is my bad. That's why we have two different colors. Alright, we get the good colors now. Everything is now correctly set. You can see they're starting to match nicely. But what I want to do is I want this, of course, up. The tooltip needs to go up, and this tooltip needs to point the opposite direction. So to do this, what we're going to do here is just play around a bit with our numbers, and that's why I had these numbers here. So what I'm going to say here for the y position here, it's for the cloud. What I need to do here, the y plus the cloud. Let's double check here the cloud position. We have this item here. That's or that one, the whole. Let me just double check what did I do here previously. Alright, that is, of course, that makes sense. So what I wanted to do, and that was, I guess I'm slightly confused in my own work, is the position here. I want to push this up, but this one I need to push down. And that was the reason with the positive or negative and positive. Positive means it will push the tooltip more down. If it's negative, you need to push it up. But the reason why it goes higher up is, as you can see here, the way it doesn't, this one here to push up, it needs to go far more up than if you go down. Down we need to probably only 18 pixels. Well, if you're going up, we need to move almost 40 pixels. So what I'm going to do here is, and this is the reason why I do a plus, because it will be negative or positive based on the formula. If I save that, refresh, there we are. Same logic needs to be applied on the carrot. So for the carrot, I'm going to say this. And what we're going to do here with the carrot is the y. And then here, I guess, what I did here, it will be the y plus, let's say 13 pixels. I'll just do this first. I see these here, so I figured out already what it is. But I need to make sure we have it all correctly. So plus 13 pixels. This will be plus 18. And this one will be plus 18. And later on we will multiply it by plus or negative 1 or 1. Alright, there we're getting it. So now what I need to do is I need to make sure that this is multiplied by the value if it's positive or negative. The tooltip position, is it up or down? So there we are. So we're going to make sure that this is like that. Prioritize this, save, refresh. Oh, 114. That's this one here. Line 2. That means another parenthesis here. Alright. As you can see here, this one is a bit off. So I need to push this up. So how do we push this up? We have here the 13 as well, and probably here we can just multiply that as well. Save that, refresh. Now we have this finally, and this is a real tricky item. And as you can see here, it's clipping off, and same here, we're clipping up. I'm going to use a simple trick for this because I don't want to make it too long because we're getting really long into this video. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to scroll down here in the layout, and then here for the layout probably I can expand this one. Let's say here 30 pixels by 30. Save, refresh. I guess that one needs to be more, but this one is fine. Let's say the right side should have 50 pixels. Alright, that works. So the final item is basically adding the text here. We have the date, and then in white, and then we have the value, whatever the value is, 12, 9, etc, etc. So what I'm going to do is go up here. Then we can say here the text. And for the text, first of all, I want to make sure that the text is white. So I say ctx.fill style. This will be white. Then what I want to do is I want to give this a font, ctx.font, and the font for the small text or for the date will be a small text, will be 10 pixels, but 10 pixels, and then font family will be sans serif, which is the default font family. Then I will make sure that the text will be aligned to the very left side here, and the other text will be on the right side. So I say ctx.text align equals left. Once we did this, we can now start to fill up the text. Say ctx.fill text, and the fill text here I'll say data.labels. Basically what we did here above as well when I was getting this, data.labels and then the index value. That's the text, and then we have the x and y coordinates. So the x and y coordinates should be the x position, and then the y should be this plus, I guess, the cloud position as well. I'm sure we have to play around with it a bit, but let's see. So if I do this, as you can see here, what's going on, the text is a bit high. So there's two things. I need to move this more to the left side, but also I need to move this to the center, like what we call baseline. So I'm going to say here ctx.text baseline equals middle. Save. Alright. Then I need to move this down. What we know is two things. We know that this height is about 20 pixels. How do I know this? Because we define that here, the height. The width is 100. So that would mean that the text needs to be pushed probably 50 pixels or something like that. Because right now it's in the center, or it is somewhere that is exactly not where it should be. So what I'm going to say here, let's see here, the position, let's say here, maybe 50 pixels. And then here for the Y position, because it's 20 pixels, I want to be in the center. It's 10 pixels, so plus 10 pixels. Alright, that looks nice, but you might say, well, this is too close for comfort. That's fair. Let's say 45 pixels. So we have 5 pixels padding, and that looks quite nice. So that is nice. The next one is the value on the right side. And what I want to do with the value on the right side, that should be bold and in a bigger font size. So to do this, I'm going down here, I'll just say here another text tool, and I'm going to grab here this I need, but now I want it bold, and font size will be 12. Next, I want to have, I guess, the alignment instead of left, that's here, I need to move it to the right side. So I'm going to say here, alignment will be right. And then what I want to do now is put in the text. So I say ctx.fill text, and the fill text here is the value of the item. So if it's 12, I can say 12, and then we need to figure out here our x and y coordinates. So I assume here we're going to just use the same logic. For the y, put it here, is the cloud position. For the x, I assume the same logic, but instead of going to the left is a negative, I want to go to the right, so I say plus 45. Save that. There we are. So that looks nice, but I can imagine maybe you say, well, hold on, what about if I want to have a percentage or something like that? Well, let's add up a percentage here, like that. But now, because this is just all hard-coded, what about the value that I want? Well, let's grab the value now. So to get the value, yeah, I think we already had it here before somewhere. The data, let's see, data label, no, that's the data index. This is the index, and all I need is in here. Well, let's try that. I'm going to make this template details. I'm going to use backtick, dollar sign, because this is a variable, like that. All right, and then we're going to say here, well, what do we need? We want to go into the data sets. Here, what we need to get here is the index number, and the index number is the data set that we have here. Data index number dot data, and then we're going to say here, what is the index number of that one? Well, remember we had that here already. Data point dot index value dot index value. Put it in here. Alright, so once I save this, I hope we have it all complete. This is 9, 9, 12. That is correct. This is 12, as you can see here, and there we are. This looks absolutely phenomenal. Of course, there's still a lot more we could do, but this, to be honest, looks absolutely stunning. And it's like a tooltip, but we have created our own version of it. If I move away, you can see there's no issues here. I click or anything, it will do nothing. Everything works nicely. And there we are. And that's basically how to do this.